Welcome to Not in Real Estate with me, National Core. I want us to discuss in this episode, about the affordable housing agenda of the government. And I know we've looked at this before, as I mentioned earlier, the previous episode. Let's interrogate it again in view of the housing levy. Now the housing levy, the 1.5 housing levy that has been passed in the finance bill. So I want us to interrogate that and critically look at whether government will build and what is this affordable housing issue? Why has it been a big debate? I think first of all, I want to appreciate that it's been a good thing that we've been have this debate in this country. It's a fantastic thing that for once, we in the construction sector had attention of the almost entire country in discussing housing. Yeah. And housing is a right under the Constitution. The right to housing in under Article 43(1)(b) is something we embedded as a right. And I agree that government cannot sit back when a core component of its population needs housing. Yeah? If we did not find the need to having as a right, the framers of our constitution, and by large, we who passed that constitution will have said, remove the right to housing. So we made the right to housing as a basic right in the constitution under Article 43(1)(b). So yes, when it is a right in the constitution, then government cannot sit back when a key component or a key people in its constituency, in its population, in its borders require housing. So this is a good debate. This is a good debate. There are countries that I'm sure look at us with envy, that we are having a debate on housing, on affordability of housing. So it's first of all, it's a good thing that for a second administration running, we have got a government second administration running attention on housing. Yeah, it's a fantastic thing, and it's something we must applaud. Now, I agree with government that we need housing, and agreed housing, whether it is affordable housing or social housing, we'll see. But I agree with government that there is a need for government to meet the housing demand of its key critical people that may not afford it. That much I agree. That much we aligned. What I differ with the government is how to realize those houses. For me, that is a major concern. My concern is how to achieve the houses. So we agree there's need for housing. And if you look at the projection of the African continent, 40,000 people move to urban centers on a daily basis across the African continent. 40,000 people. When the sun rises and sets in the continent of Africa, 40,000 people have moved to urban centers. The projection is that we are going to have half of the African population in the urban centers by mid of this century. We have one of the highest urbanization rates at 4.4%. We have one of the highest population growth rate at 2.5% when the rest of the globe is growing at 1.2%. So yes, we need to have a housing debate because we're going to face a crisis. I've said before that we don't have a housing crisis yet. We have a housing problem. However, we will face a housing crisis very soon. Yeah, we're going to face a housing crisis very soon. Right now, we're dealing with a housing problem. But in the near future, we're going to face a crisis. So we should not wait for the crisis to begin this work. That's why I welcome this debate on housing. Fantastic debate on housing. Now, let me once again prosecute my issues with the affordable housing agenda. Government intends to do 250,000 houses in a year. All right? First of all, it's a good thing because one of the concerns I had with the Uhuru administration's affordable housing agenda is because it took us off Vision 2030. The Jubilee administration under President Uhuru in the second term had projected to do 500,000 houses in 5 years. Basically, that is 100,000 houses a year. Now, that took us off from Vision 2030 because if you look at the medium-term plan 1 of the Kibaki regime of 2009 to 2012 that was aligned to Vision 2030. That plan had wanted to do 200,000 houses a year. That was the plan that was tied to Vision 2030. So the Kibaki regime under Mini-Term Plan 1 of 2009 to 2012 had projected to do 200,000 houses in a year. That was aligned to Vision 2030. When Uhuru came in second term, he reduced it to 100,000 houses a year. That took us off Vision 2030. And for me, that was a concern. By the way, I'm talking like that, assuming Vision 2030 is still on course. I have not interrogated much in that area. But one of the concerns we had was it took us off Vision 2030. Of course, the MTP Plan 1 of Kibaki regime fell miserably. Out of those number of houses they were supposed to do, they did only 3,000. Yeah, they did only 3,000. They were to do 200,000 a year from 2009 to 2012. They only did 3,000 during that period. So it was a total failure. Now, when Uhuru came, we had issues with housing, with this agenda. First, it took us off Vision 2030. Number two was the plan. The plan. And this administration, again, is, as I've said it many times, is repeating Jubilee housing agenda mistakes. Yeah, it's like a playbook. They're copy-pasting it. They're copy-pasting the mistakes. And I will explain to you why. Any meaningful debate on housing, any meaningful debate on affordable housing cannot exclude the cost of construction. It will not work. The reason why we are talking about affordability in simple layman terms of my grandmother is a cost issue. It's a money issue. It's a cost issue. So any meaningful debate on affordability of housing must include cost of construction. And that's why you'll find a great misconception with this government. Great misconception with this government. Because they are increasing cost in the construction sector while talking about affordability. They are increasing taxes in the construction sector while talking about affordability. Just like the previous administration, there is no, if you look at it, there is no clear plan of how you're going to lower the cost of construction. All right? Of course, there is the part they say, if you enter affordable housing program, then there's 16% VAT that is off, so you save about 10%. But that is it. That's all. That's all. And once we exclude the debate on the cost of construction in this affordable housing agenda, guys, we will not build affordably. And I say we will not build affordably. No, I'm not saying we will not build. I'm saying we will not build affordably. Those are two different things. We will build houses. The Jubilee administration will build some houses. But will they be affordable? They will not be affordable. Now, let's look why I say they will not be affordable. First of all, I do not think we need to talk about affordable housing. If you're looking at housing in Article 43(1)(b) of the Constitution, you're talking about social housing, not affordable housing. If you're looking at housing to the slums areas, you essentially talk about social housing, not affordable housing. So again, there's a problem there in terms of even the name of what you want to do. But that's a discussion for another day. If we want to realize housing at the bottom of the square, bottom of the triangle, all right? And I've said this many times, we cannot achieve housing for the people under Article 43(1)(b) within the market and profit model. I'm going to explain what I mean. With the high cost of construction that we are experiencing, and there is no, if you look at the finance bill, there is no attempt to lower that. So we expect it to continue to rise. You cannot say, the way the government is saying, that even if you have the housing levy money, you cannot say that let the private sector build, and then the private sector are building within what? The market parameters of willing buyer, willing seller. So let Nation build. How will Nation build? Nation will build with the steel purchased from the local, cement from the local, sand, all those sand material transportation costs that are being affected by the fuel levy and all this stuff. build within those parameters of the market, and then when you finish, you buy from you, and then call that affordably. And Nation is in business. I'm in business. So you give me land as government. Some of this is very laughable. You give me land as government, then I build. All right? I build within the costs that are in that environment. So if cement is 700 shillings, I buy like anyone else. If steel is 200 shillings per kg, buy like anyone else. All right? Build that. When you finish, Nation, put in your markup, put in your margins of profit. Then give it, we'll buy it from you after that. And somehow it should be affordable. It will not be affordable. We cannot achieve affordable housing in capitalism, in this our capitalism economy, within the capitalism market or willing buyer, willing seller, and make it affordable. It cannot be. That is the concern that we've been raising. I mean, it would have been logical that government will have entered in another program. I have always said that affordable housing, if you're going to do affordable housing, social housing, to realize a right under Article 43(1)(b), it has to be on a different program. That will have to be a different program, probably a non-profit program. Right? And government, through this housing levy, has that opportunity. 84 billion in a year, or in 7 years. 84 billion, or 8 billion, I think now it's, say, 4 billion in a year. It's been halved. The best way to achieve affordable housing with the housing levy right now is for government to directly build and eliminate the markup part of it. But if you let private investors build, they build and buy materials within the same competition of the market. Materials that are affected by the same taxations you have levied. Have those costs, bump those costs up and then put their margins. And somehow you want to buy it from them because you have the housing levy, you have the funds, buy it from them and give people affordably. It's not possible. It's not possible. And those are the fundamental concerns that we've been having. Affordable housing agenda, and that is what we're saying. That is what I've been calling the financialization of housing. Yeah, if you're going to treat housing the way we've been told that this is a patriotic duty of realizing a constitutional right for those who cannot afford in our society, then it cannot be within the market and profit model. You cannot realize a right under the Constitution when people are still making money. It's still a product for business. You're still inviting investors to invest in that area for business. You cannot realize a constitutional right under a profit model. It's not possible. We must run away from it, and that's one thing we must tell our government, that you will not realize these houses affordably within this model that you have. And I've said it many times that I have no issue with the housing levy. Personally, don't. I have no issue with the housing levy. All right? My issue with the housing levy is the realization of the houses. And we've talked about these things with the previous administration so much that there was going to be a problem in how they're going to achieve affordable housing with the model they had. They failed miserably. And it's the same concern that we are raising to the government, that you cannot achieve affordable housing, social housing. You're increasing taxes in that area. You want to achieve it within the market and profit model with investors in the midst. Investors, people that are in business. You want to realize a right under the Constitution and still have a business model for it. It has to be almost a non-profit model. Affordable housing cannot be achieved within that model. And that is the misconception with the affordable housing agenda. Those two misconceptions. Number one misconception, great misconception, is that we somehow will achieve affordability of houses within the market and profit model. I do not understand how the government bureaucrats cannot see that. It's not possible. You cannot achieve affordable housing within the market and profit model of willing buyer, willing seller. Let the investor build, bump up his returns, bump up his cost, his profit models, then sell it to you affordably. It's not possible. Number two misconception that the government has is you cannot achieve affordable housing when you're raising taxes in that environment. On an industry that's already, the cost of construction is really high. Not possible. Not possible. Those two issues is what is bringing a problem in achieving affordable housing. You're raising taxes, you're talking affordability. You're building under the market and profit model of returns, you're talking about affordability. It cannot work. And you know, since you have a program that has capped the cost of house, because I had the PS say the other day, oh, you know, we've capped this cost of house to 2.5 million. That is fine. So the only sacrifice when you cap up the cost of a house is the size of the house. That's why they're talking about a house for 30 square meter, 25 square meter. What is that? All right? What is that? It cannot work. And you see, when you consider housing at the bottom of the square, when you consider the people we are talking about that we envisaged under Article 43(1)(b) of the Constitution of the right to housing, if you look at people in that level, housing at that bottom level is a demand issue, it's not a supply issue. Housing at the bottom of the pyramid under Article 43(1)(b), it's a demand issue. What do I mean by demand issue? At that bottom level, those people cannot afford the house. So affordability is a problem at the bottom level. It's affordability. So if you build a house within the parameters of the regulations, the building code, and all these things that the architectural design that requires a habitable house to look like, and all those things, and you build it completely to finish and supply it to them, they will not afford. And that's why I've been saying, if you're looking at fulfilling a right for those people at the bottom, it has to be something outside the market model. Outside the market model. And that's why some people have also said that you cannot realize in housing at that bottom level unless you change income for those people, which I partly agree. Because they say at that bottom level it's a demand issue, they can't afford. There could be very good houses around Mukuru Kwanza, but they could be empty right now because they just can't afford that rent. They can't afford that rent. And you see, there's this notion somehow that we will pick people from the slums and put to a house somewhere on a 10th floor, and somehow they will adapt. Yeah, you just get people from Mukuru Kwanza, put in a house on a 10th floor, they will adapt. They will not adapt. So that is a problem we need to address, that even at the bottom level that we want to achieve affordably and give houses, even for rent, that at that bottom level is a real demand issue, it's not a supply issue. So you cannot cure that by supplying, which is again another problem, because there's this notion that somehow we just need to build faster, produce more houses as much as possible. I think it's 200,000, do 200,000 houses in a year, and somehow they'll be affordable. They won't be affordable. You will be building 200,000 houses at a very high cost that is not affordable to the common Mwananchi. It's not a solution. Again, that's another misconception. You just build faster. Build 200,000 houses every year, and it will be affordable. If you're building within the market parameters of this high material cost in construction that we see around, all right, and you're still letting the investors bump up their returns and build it for you and sell it to you as the off-taker, even if you build 1 million houses in a year, they will not be affordable. All right? The last thing I have with housing agenda is the fixation with ownership. Yeah? There is a big fixation with literally all government bureaucrats. And this is not bespoke to Kenya. This is a problem globally. There's a fixation with ownership. Yeah? The president keeps talking about home ownership, home ownership, home ownership, home ownership. Yet at the bottom of the pyramid we are talking about that you want to achieve, the slum people, those people, the least of their concern is to own a house. That is the least of their concern. And if you look at Article 43(1)(b) of the Constitution, it is a right to housing, not a right to ownership. You do not need to own a house. You need a good house. You don't necessarily to own it. And there's so many countries out there, and somehow we think when people own houses, our economies become better. But in Europe, the countries with the highest home ownership rates are the poorest. Go check. The countries with the highest home ownership rate in Europe are the poorest. Albania, 98% home ownership. Romania, 96% home ownership. They are the poorest countries in Europe. Switzerland, that is number 3 globally in terms of GDP, right? Switzerland is one of the richest countries. Only 32% of the population of Switzerland own houses. So sometimes you wonder, why are we so fixated with owning? What is this home ownership issue that we're being shoved down our throats? Give people long-term rents. Give someone a 30-year lease for rent. Have rent controls. I don't necessarily need to own a house. Give me that house at 5,000 shillings for 30 years with every 5-year increase in rent, very minimal. Have rent controls in the market. People don't need to own these houses. So when talk about or take mortgage, it doesn't need to be so. In the Constitution, if we wanted people to own houses in the Constitution, we would have said right to ownership. We said right to housing. So let's have it at that. So these are my issues in this housing debate. These are my critical issues with the affordable housing agenda. It's a good thing. And we want the government to succeed. We in the construction industry want the government to succeed. That's why we are concerned. We want them to succeed. And we will keep pointing out these errors until they get it right. Begin discussing the cost of construction in terms of affordability. Number 2, you cannot increase taxes in this construction industry and still talk about affordability. Number 3, you cannot achieve affordable housing agenda, a right under the Constitution within the market and profit model, where investors build with high returns in them and then they throw it back to you to buy and give population affordably. It cannot work. Number 4 is the fixation with ownership. Get out of it. Build houses, give people long-term rents. The Nordics are doing it. So that we can achieve this agenda once and for all and move to the next thing. If you don't address these things, and I don't think they've been addressed even in this housing levy, I don't think there is a concern to address them. We'll be here in 2027 with another failure in housing. There is no miracle here. These things have been done. Let's study case studies like Ethiopia that have been, even their challenges alone is enough for us to learn from. We must get housing right this time. 5 years is a long time to waste. It's going to be another wasted 5 years, and we cannot afford another wasted 5 years in this sector. They must get it right.